This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 470, Predictably Irrational, Part 2, by Mr. Money Mustache of MrMoneyMustache.com. And I'm your host and narrator, Dan. Happy Friday to all of you out there in podcast land. Today's post is a continuation from yesterday's. As regular listeners will know, we often cut up these longer pieces into 2-day segments. So the first half was read yesterday, and I'll be finishing this post up today. So if you're new here, I'd recommend listening to yesterday's episode first. That would be episode 469. But if you're all caught up, away we go. Let's hear part 2 as we continue optimizing your life. Predictably Irrational, Part 2, by Mr. Money Mustache of MrMoneyMustache.com. Market norms versus social norms. Most of us know that it is socially inappropriate to ask our friends to cough up money when we invite them over for dinner, or to offer money to a romantic partner in exchange for But it is normal to pay for a meal at a restaurant, and the world's oldest profession continues to thrive. This is the core of the distinction between market and social norms. As it turns out, humans obey different rules when operating in a business environment than they do when they perceive they are among friends and family. We are more generous when we are reading from the social norms playbook, and we enjoy our lives more when doing it. This is why countries and cultures with stronger family and friendship bonds tend to be happier than the cold and impersonal market-driven ones, even if their incomes are lower. You can use this to your advantage. By bringing social exchanges back into your life, you can live more happily and build a safety net that protects you from the sharpest edges of the market system. I saw a nice example of this about a year ago when a close friend stopped by and saved my house from flooding as part of a routine visit to water the plants. Invite your neighbors over for dinner, share children back and forth for babysitting, and loan out your tools, lawnmower, and weekend labor as much as you can. And if you run a company, bring some social norms into the way you treat customers and employees. Instead of dinging people with every conceivable fee or squeezing employees with the lowest legal level of vacation allowance, expand your trust and generosity towards them. Watch as their dedication to you grows and provides benefits much greater than the costs. Loss aversion and overvaluing what we have. When I wrote the opening story about losing $12,000 in the article about strength, I took some heat in the comments about it. You didn't lose the 12 grand, Mustache. You just didn't get the money in the first place. Totally different. But that choice of words was deliberate. I work hard to remind myself that although it feels different to have a brand new $12,000 car roll off a cliff because I forgot to set the parking brake, or have an expected $12,000 deal fail to materialize after doing all the work, the financial effect is exactly the same, and thus I should not worry about either of them. In everyday life, loss aversion messes with us more than we realize. We hesitate to sell things we are no longer using because we become attached to them. I can't sell my pickup truck for $12,000. I paid $30,000 for it just a few years ago. I don't want to invest in stocks because there might be a big crash which causes me to lose money. I prefer to keep the money in savings where it is guaranteed not to fluctuate. I'm afraid to seek out a new job or find myself a new home closer to work because I might lose some of the comforts that I've grown accustomed to in the current situation. The way to get around this is to recognize and work to compensate for your own irrational loss aversion. For example, I keep a Craigslist app on my phone and fairly ruthlessly fire out ads to sell unused things when I stumble across them in the storage area of our house. I try to replace emotion with the more rational friend of statistics when deciding whether I should invest money, buy a more full coverage type of insurance, or take any other form of risk. And in our upcoming move, where we are losing over 1,000 square feet of living space, I remind myself that there is no fundamental rule of humanity that dictates 3 people will be any more happy with 2,600 square feet of interior space than they will be with 1,532 square feet. I program myself to feel the cha-ching instinct, which creates immediate gratification in the event of good monetary decisions to compensate for my natural tendency to want shiny things now instead of investing for later. Marketing and how it plays your like a puppet. The thing about all of these cognitive biases is that even if you don't round them up and get control of them, somebody else will. For over a century, the field of psychology has been unearthing these things and studying them rigorously, discovering the joys and hilarious downfalls of the human animal. And for almost as long, marketers have been picking up the research and honing it for their own advantage. I recently read a quote from the head of one of the country's largest ad agencies, which went something like this. Quote, "It is generally understood in our industry that we aren't fulfilling wants and needs, we are creating them. A new product first needs to create a market for itself before it can be sold into it." End quote. Isn't that revealing? I still admire many of the funny and creative people of the advertising industry, and my own dad worked most of his career in it, running his own one-man agency for much of my childhood. In fact, some of the lessons of that industry have surely soaked into my own approach, and you could view this blog as an ongoing anti-advertisement, which aims to apply some of those principles in reverse. But by golly, if you are going to be out there trying to kick ass in life and as an economic unit, you'd better go to battle with proper armor. And that means understanding your evolutionary weaknesses so you can avoid their tendency to turn you into a consumer sucker. We are all idiots at heart, but the more successful among us learn to compensate for our idiocy. So I'd like to give my thanks to Dan Ariely for writing this book and his amazing contributions to society so far. I'm off to read the rest of what he has written. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled Predictably Irrational by Mr. Money Mustache of MrMoneyMustache.com. And that's going to do it for another week here on Optimal Finance Daily. As always, I want to thank you for being a subscriber and a regular listener and for sharing the show with friends, family, and the occasional stranger. Have a great weekend, everybody. I will see you on Monday where your optimal life awaits.